So now it's on the recording.
We start in about 2 minutes, right?
Pardon?
So we start in 2 minutes, for example.
Yes, exactly. So now we have Emanuel, hör du mig? Hello, Birger.
Hi, Ingvar.
Hi.
Grigor, hello.
How are you?
Excellent. Just sending the link to Ferdinand.
Okay.
We don't have enough grandmasters in this call yet.
So
Exactly.
we have a couple of minutes to wait, huh?
Yeah, we can wait a little bit. It's not necessary to rush. I'm just checking everybody so I don't miss anyone to let them in.
Okay.
But I guess some will come after a while, so we don't know. So hej Emanuel, hör du mig?
Ja.
Jättebra. Och Jesper hör mig, och då hör alla mig. Okay, let's start this webinar with WasaSK. I wish Grigor, special welcome to you. Very nice to have you with us.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
I think we all are very happy. We are looking forward to this night. We are going to discuss some interesting kind of position, which of course yourself, Grigor, will have to tell us about when we come to this in due time. But maybe we should do like we usually do, that when we start up, that we have some a little bit talking to each other about you and your chess career, and what is important for you nowadays. Maybe you talk a little bit also about your chess company, education company, Modern Chess. So I don't know so much about you except that you are from Bulgaria. Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe you talk a little bit. How did you start your chess playing when you were?
Actually, I have started playing chess a bit late, at the age of 10. My father is an amateur chess player, and he's actually the reason why I started playing chess. But since I enjoyed playing a lot, I started progressing very fast, and I became a grandmaster in 2011, actually, at the age of 23. Nowadays, I'm mainly concentrated on my company, Modern Chess. Maybe, some of you know my website. We are selling educational products, digital products. We have opening databases, middle game databases, end game databases. Currently, we are organizing some online chess events, camps and workshops. Our mission is the chess education, and we are making it via digital chess products. So if some of you has additional questions related to this project, of course, I'm open to answer. All of you know that I'm currently playing for the first team of Wasa. I'm enjoying it very much. Every time when I come to Sweden, I play with pleasure for this team. I like the players, the entire atmosphere. It feels very nice to be in this team.
Yeah, if you would like to describe yourself as a chess player, you are, I guess, if I would have a wild guess, is it like you are more the scientific one, and to base your you play on the new theoretical news in different variation, or
Okay,
how would you describe yourself?
actually, this is not so simple question, but I would generally describe myself as an intuitive player. I try to play when referring on my intuition. I like positional chess, and I enjoy playing some technical positions which are mainly based on intuition and not on calculation of concrete variations. I try to play in a style which is related to the general chess understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, the topic I will be dealing with tonight is features the general chess understanding. So you will not see so much concrete stuff in my lecture.
I see. We welcome Ferdinand also.
Oh, hello, hello.
Hello, Ferdinand.
Hello, Grigor.
And hello, Borislava. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Fine, fine, thank you.
By the way, Grigor, what would you say about playing chess in Bulgaria? We know you have some famous Bulgarian chess player like Wesley Topolov and Sheparino.
Yes,
and
yes.
then Grigorov also. How is the chess
Okay,
like in your
I'm not as famous as they are, but actually in Bulgaria we have foundation. We have some prominent chess players like Veselin Topalov. Kirill Georgiev was very strong when he was at his peak. Also, nowadays, Ivan Cheparinov is very strong. I believe we have about 30 grandmasters, which is not so little, especially when we are speaking about a country with a population of about 7 million. So in Bulgaria, we have a good chess school. I think Bulgarian players have a good and solid chess understanding. Okay, recently there were issues related to the Bulgarian Chess Federation, and I can say that currently chess life in Bulgaria is not developing in the right direction. But okay, let's not enter into political issues.
Yeah, I agree. But do you, for example, have a national series in Bulgaria also, like we have in our countries in Scandinavia?
National league, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. In general, our team championships are quite strong, but the system is a bit different. For example, you play all the matches during 1 week, not every week or once a month. So
Okay.
the entire event ends in 1 week.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah, there are some differences, but we have a strong team championship in Bulgaria. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how is it like if we just use a couple of minutes talking about the junior chess for young kids? Do you have a strong school program, or is it the club who is running the chess education for young people?
Actually, people are growing in chess clubs. School chess is not so well developed in Bulgaria. And I can say that currently we have some very talented young players. Maybe you know the names of Nurgul Salimova, who is very young but reached a rating of around 2,400. Also, this young guy, Tsvetan Stoyanov. So we have talented kids, and let's see what will happen in the future. But the organization of the chess education now is not so good, and these kids are mainly relying on their personal trainers.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, there's some job to be done there. I understand. Yeah. Okay.
There is a room of improvement. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So before you start with your examples and questions chess-wise, maybe you should just tell very briefly about your education company, Modern Chess, which we can see here, which I've shared with everybody. Maybe not, we need not to go too deep. Maybe we could come back to it in the end of our webinar. But
maybe
just say a few words about it.
I can say a few words in the end. As I said, we sell digital products related to the chess education, opening databases, middle game databases, end game databases. We have this Modern Chess magazine. Currently, we're organizing online events, and now you have opened the workshop, which will be held tomorrow. Improve your positional play. You see that there will be 4 grandmasters, myself, Mikhail Marin, Davorin Kulashevich, Petr Varnudov. We are going to examine interesting topics related to the positional chess. Those of you who are interested can see the program. But if you want, I could now just concentrate on my topic, and at the end of the lecture, if some of you is interested, we can discuss in a greater detail.
Okay. So actually now I just made you the host of our webinar. So it means you should be possible for you to bring up some position by your tool, which you have to choose yourself, chess-based or whatever.
Okay, now if I share the screen, this will stop you sharing the screen.
Yeah, you can just stop your sharing, or I can try to stop it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I will say, I will share only portion of the screen.
Yeah.
So just a second. Can you see the board well?
Yeah, I think you could diminish it a little bit so we only see the board itself. Yeah.
Yes, actually,
I only see the board.
Now it's fine.
I think it's perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, excellent. Yes.
Yes. In this way, you will be not distracted by the notation.
Okay.
Therefore, I prefer to share only the board. But if it doesn't work for you, I can change it. So today, I want to speak about closed positions, which is a very challenging topic, a very how to say, a very wide topic, and it's nearly impossible to cover this topic in an exhaustive way. Therefore, I would concentrate on some very important aspects. Why is it difficult to play closed positions, especially for younger players? Because in such positions, you don't have so much concrete stuff. Calculation of the variations is not so important. It's very difficult to play closed positions by referring on the memory. So if someone is playing an opening variation in which a closed position arises, it's not possible to play this line by relying on memory. Very often, computers are thinking in a wrong way in such positions. While preparing the material for the current lecture, I have seen on many occasions that computers are making mistakes in the evaluation. So
Yeah.
first of all, I want to say that in such positions, we should mainly focus on static factors. These are the factors which are stable in the time. So the space advantage, for example, is very, very important when we speak about closed positions. And in this lecture, I will speak a lot about space advantage. Also, it's very important to consider the right exchanges because the passivity and the activity of the pieces is defined by the pawn structure. Therefore, every exchange can be crucial. The importance of every exchange can be crucial for the outcome of the game. Also, in such positions, it's very important to be able to think in schemes. Schematic thinking and the elaboration of long-term plans is a very important skill when we're playing closed positions. And one other aspect that I will try to cover in this lecture, this is the prophylactic thinking, because generally we have time in this kind of positions. So before executing our own ideas, our own plans, we should try to eliminate every possible counterplay of our opponent, and only then we can start executing our proper ideas. This is the reason why I'm planning to speak about prophylactic thinking in quite an extensive way during the lecture. So let me start with one example, which is taken from my game against Georgiev. He's a Bulgarian grandmaster. Actually, back in, okay, I don't remember the exact year. It was in 1980s. He won against Kasparov in a very sharp game.
What was his name again? Sorry.
Georgiev.
Okay.
He's a Bulgarian grandmaster. He's always playing King's Indian defense. This game was played in 2016. So now I'm playing with white, and let's try to think about this position and to make a possible plan. Of course, this d5 pawn gives me a space advantage on the queen side. Therefore, I should generally try to play on the queen side, because we are trying to play on the wing where we have a space advantage. The only constructive idea on the queen side is to execute the break b4. So in some way, I should prepare a3 and b4. But this is only a general consideration. As I thought, in the closed positions, we should also consider desirable exchanges, and also think about the exchanges which are not so favorable for us. For example, in such positions, of course, we can try to exchange this c8 bishop, which is black's most active piece in Queen's Indian setups. But generally speaking, in this position, since I have a space advantage, I should refrain from exchanging minor pieces, because you see that black's minor pieces are struggling to find good squares. They're limited in their actions. For example, 3 black pieces are fighting for the d7 square. So generally speaking, I should refrain from exchanging minor pieces. Let's imagine for a moment that we remove all the minor pieces from the board. What do you think? Will be some problems in black's position then? So we have no knights, no bishops. with only major pieces on the board, Black will prepare the advance b7, b5, and I think he will not face any problems in this position. But what will happen if we exchange all the major pieces, the rooks and the queens, and we have only minor pieces on the board? Then White will retain his advantage because Black will still experience problems which is based on the limited activity of his minor pieces. His minor pieces will still be struggling to find a good square. So, therefore, in positions in which we have a space advantage, it's possible to exchange queens and rooks, but minor pieces should stay on the board. So in this position, I played a3 with the idea of rook b1 and b4. Now he played a6. Actually, this move is quite interesting. He wants to secure the c7 square for the queen just to prevent knight b5 in some moments. But this move has some serious drawbacks because, okay, Black is playing on the side where he's weaker. So how can I use this the drawbacks of this move a6? For example, in many cases, I can try to undermine the c5 square in the following way. So let's imagine that I play a4, a5, and then bishop e3, knight a4, and b4 at some point. You see that it's not easy to hold this c5 square because the move b6 will not be possible. Had the pawn been on a7, Black could have played b6, but when the pawn is on a6, then it's not that easy. Of course, I can play first b4, rook b4, rook b1 and b4, and then a4, a5. And at some point, Black will not have the possibility to play b6 in order to keep the structure intact. Therefore, I'm not sure if this move was correct because my idea of knight b5 was not so dangerous. So rook b1, queen c7. Here he's preventing b4, but I can prepare it in the following way: bishop f1. So I protect the c4 pawn, and now I'm ready to proceed with b4. And here he went for knight f8. You see, it's not so easy to coordinate the minor pieces when you don't have space. As I already pointed out, 3 Black minor pieces are fighting for the d7 square. So now I played bishop e3, b6, b4, bishop d7. And here, since Black completed his development, I should decide how to continue. Maybe we can discuss for a while what do you think, what Black is planning to do, and how White should proceed in this position. I found a move I'm pleased with, but okay, maybe objectively other options could be possible. Let's make some brief discussion if you want, because I'm interested in your opinion.
They want to play b5?
b5?
Yeah, rook b1 and b5.
Black, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, actually, I want this because I'm ready to play on the queen side. My pieces are there, and actually, from a tactical point of view, it's very difficult to carry out the advance b5. I have a good control there. I can take b takes c5, then c takes b5, and maybe generally speaking, playing on the wing where we're weak is not so advisable. Maybe he should be trying to play on the king side. Yeah, as I thought, here in such positions, we have plenty of time. Therefore, prophylactic thinking is very crucial.
So maybe you start with moving your king.
So you mean king h8? Yeah, then knight g8 and f5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. In such positions, I always try to imagine what could be the possible counterplay of my opponent, and before proceeding with my own ideas, I try to prevent him from going for his idea. And in the perfect case, I can do both. I can make a move which contributes to my plan and at the same time prevents the opponent from executing his idea. And I found such a move. Here I went for knight d2.
Yeah.
So, which is, I think, very good idea, because whenever he goes king h8, as he did in the game, I can play queen f3, just preventing knight g8. And also by playing queen f3, I'm a connection between the rooks. But okay, you know, in chess, when you find a good move, try to find a better one. So I tried to execute my idea in the best possible way. And actually, before going for queen f3, I decided to improve the pawn structure on the queen side, and I went for a4. You remember that I was speaking about the disadvantages of the move a6. You know, you see how one little pawn move creates a lot of problems for black, because after a4, what is my positional threat? I want to break with a5, and since the pawn is not on a7 but on a6, it turns that black cannot keep the queenside structure. For example, let's just give a sample line: rook b8. Now a5. Yeah. Are there some problems related to my connection or voice?
No, I don't think. It's just that someone maybe have forgot to mute themselves.
Okay. So a5, you see, I'm making use of black's queenside structure. B takes a5, B takes c5, D takes c5, knight b3, and black cannot keep his queenside. Knight c5 is coming, and white is winning. So now, since he had played, in order to prevent white from going a5, he was forced to accept further concessions. He went for a5 now. But this move gives me the b5 square. So b takes c5, and here there is a choice. He should decide how to take. He has taken in the more active way. He played d takes c5, just freeing the d6 square for the knight, but we will get back to this position a bit later. First of all, I want to examine the idea b takes c5. Here I was planning to continue knight b5, queen b6, and now queen f3. Once again, trying to prevent knight g8 followed by f5. And here, white has a very simple idea. I was I can make the following plan. First of all, it's possible to double the rooks along the B file because under favorable circumstances, I can just bring the knight back and invade in black's position. But after doubling the rooks on the B file, it's possible to open a second battlefield. I can create second weakness on the king side. In order to achieve that, it's possible to go for G4, at some point G5, H4, H5, because black's pieces will be concentrated on the queen side just to prevent my invasion, and therefore I can start playing on the queen side. From a positional point of view, yeah, this position is very difficult for black. He went for d takes c5, and this time he has another idea. Once again, I insist on the importance of the prophylactic thinking. We should always try to imagine how the position of our opponent can progress, and in such closed positions, often this is the best way to find ideas for ourselves. When thinking about the possible ideas of my opponent, I found the following construction: rook b8, then knight e8, knight d6, and then he's ready to start with f5. And of course, here queen f3 is a must-play move, just putting pressure on the knight and making the connection between the rooks. Then he played rook b8, and here, if I play some general move like rook b3 with the idea of rook b1, I would give black enough time to execute his idea, maybe king g8, just to protect the f7 pawn, and then this maneuver is possible: knight e8, knight d6, and okay, then I think black has a decent counterplay. Therefore, here some concrete actions are required from white, and I played bishop g5. It turns out that for black is not easy at all to defend the knight in a proper way. For example, he went for queen d8, accepting the pin, but if he plays queen d6, you know that the queen is not a very suitable piece for the purposes of the blockade. So knight b5, bishop takes b5, and here I would have taken with the c pawn, just freeing the c4 square for the knight. And then I have a very clear way of progressing. So after playing knight c4, I would bring the rook to d1 behind the pawn, then h4, bishop h3. At some point d6 is possible. The idea h5 would create additional threats on the king side. Black's position is strategically lost. So he played queen d8. Now black has no concrete way to improve his position. That's why I have time to double the rooks on the b file. Yeah, rook b3, rook a6, rook b1. b1, and now king g8. Yeah, and here it's clear that white has an obvious advantage. Black's pieces are poorly coordinated. But nevertheless, I should try to find a plan. And what do you think is White's most constructive idea in this position? The position looks very good in general. The advantage is so obvious, but how to progress?
May I start by asking you another question regarding black's opportunity? Could he play h6, or what is the problem?
Now h6.
No, maybe earlier, but it doesn't matter. I mean, like the possibilities in the position.
Yes, it's possible. Even now, h6 is possible. I would play definitely bishop e3 with the idea of bishop c5, just to make use of this opposition along the b file. But it's possible, of course. It's possible as an idea.
Okay.
But now, how to improve the position? What do you think?
Queen e3.
Queen e3.
Yeah, with the idea knight f3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the knight on d2 is not doing so much. That's why I want to activate it. I'm not sure, but
yeah, it seems reasonable. Yeah, Queen e3 and then knight f3. Yes,
yeah,
so maybe Queen c7 and then knight e8 he should play.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking that since black's pieces are far away from the king side, I could also start thinking of this break, f4, just to open a second front of action. But how to prepare it? First of all, I was thinking about this idea, Queen e3 and then f4, but after opening the diagonal, there will be tactical ideas on this diagonal, a7, g1. So at some point, bishop d4 can be possible. For also, this pawn is under attack, and if I play Queen e3 immediately, then maybe he will play Queen c8 and then knight e8. He has enough time. And here, since the prophylactic thinking is very important in closed positions, I just decided to eliminate every possible counterplay by my opponent, and I started with King h2. King h2, just to overprotect h3, the h3 pawn, and when I play Queen e3, I step out of all possible tricks along the diagonal a7, g1. What do you think, Ferdinand? Maybe this is also an interesting approach.
Yeah.
During the game, I liked this prophylactic idea, King h2. So he went Rook c8, just to bring the queen to b8. Now Queen e3, Queen c7, and here, playing f4 was not to my taste because of the opposition. Yeah, because of the opposition along the diagonal. And here I just wanted to prepare my play a bit and to keep all the options open. And I made
not h4.
h4. Yeah, first of all, I went for knight b5 just to make his queen passive. I think it was a good preparatory move, because if he parts with the bishop, then queen a8, then knight c4, and here I can.
Someone is having TV on.
Det tog bara några sekunder, sen rasade huset.
What happened?
Just a moment.
Många hann inte lämna byggnaderna. Det påminner om ett stort terrordåd, säger en svensk turist i Island.
Ni som sitter i Sverige, kan ni kolla att ni måste muta sig?
I think.
Yes, I will mute.
Yeah, please. Sorry, Grigor. I think it's okay now.
No problem. Okay. So here, knight c4, and I can improve the position by means of f3, h4, bishop h3. White has a huge advantage in this position, of course. So queen b8, and here I made a very decent prophylactic move. Not prophylactic move, actually, a preparatory move, because I have a lot of time to prepare my ideas, and I liked this idea, rook 1 to b2. This is a move I'm really proud of because I keep all the options open. For example,
Du ska låtsas att du är med.
for example, in such closed positions in which we have more space, it's very important to know that
Det är ni fyra som är med här.
communication lines in our camp are working better. For example, we can easily transfer our pieces from one wing to another and vice versa. So if I play f4 at some point, then it will be very easy to bring quickly the rooks to the
Kalle, I think you have to mute your microphone.
Yeah. I think Kalle entered. Maybe he could mute himself. Yeah.
Okay. So when after playing rook b2, one of my ideas is this one, just to be able to easily transfer my pieces to the king side. For example, after f4, it's possible to easily bring the rooks to the king side. So when you have space advantage, it's very easy to transfer your major pieces from one wing to another, and not only major pieces, all pieces in general. Also, I have idea by freeing the b1 square, sometimes I can make use of this pawn by executing the maneuver queen b1, and I think in general rook 1 b2 was a very good preparatory move in this position. So later you will see how this move worked in my favor. He played knight e8 with the idea of f6 and knight d6, and here I played bishop e7, of course, just to prevent this idea. At first sight, Grigorov was very happy because after bishop e7 he can exchange the dark squared bishops. Theoretically speaking, this dark squared bishop is black's most problematic piece in such positions. But I was glad to accept such an exchange because now his king remains unprotected because of the weakened dark squares. Also, you should take into consideration the fact that black's most important pieces are on the queen side, and therefore I started playing on the king side by means of f4. This is the right moment to execute this idea.
How is f6 instead of bishop f6 for black?
F6, yeah, maybe a bit passive, but completely possible. Now, at least, actually, can I already look for some tactical ideas based, yeah, knight c3, bishop c5, but it's too early. Maybe f4 is possible.
There should be.
Yeah. Okay. Here we should think how to proceed, but white's advantage is obvious, huh?
F4 looks good.
Yeah, yeah.
Because also after f4, you know, soon maybe you play d6 and
yes,
and black is cut off from his own king. You start attacking simply.
Yeah, sure. So he played bishop f6. I exchanged and played f4. He needed to exchange some pieces just to be able to keep the e5 square, because here I can also exchange even the queens. For example, after take, even queen f4 is possible. of course, my idea is to increase the pressure by means of knight f3, but even if I exchange the queens, he will be not able to protect all his weaknesses. And I have a very mighty center. So he played bishop b5, c takes b5, rook a7, just to bring the rook to e7. Now f5. With this tactical idea, g takes f5 is impossible because of queen g5. King g7, knight c4, rook e7, and now one can see the point behind this move, rook b2, because now I bring immediately the rook to f2. As I said, when we have space advantage, communication lines in our position work very well. So rook d7, knight d7, sorry, g4, h6, bishop e2. So before going for g5, I wanted to take the h5 square under control. So rook h8, take g5, and here he ran out of time. But I'm already winning because rook g3 is coming. Black simply cannot protect his king. Even when you check with the computer, white is completely winning in this position. So I think that this game illustrates some of the most important strategies when we play closed positions. We see that it's important to make a long-term plan. It's important to use the prophylactic thinking. We should always be aware of the ideas of our opponent. We should carefully consider the favorable exchanges and try to go for them. Also, it's important to keep in mind that maneuvering is easier when you have space, and we should always try to look for possibilities to transfer our pieces from one wing to another. Yes, generally speaking, in closed positions, we should mainly concentrate on static factors. So if you don't have some specific questions related to this game, we can continue. Okay. So now I want to show one game which was played by Garry Kasparov, and I was very impressed mainly by his prophylactic thinking. Maybe some of you know this game. This is Kasparov Georgadze. Kasparov is playing with whites. So in this position, okay, it's clear that white has space advantage on the queen side due to the d5 pawn, and of course white will be trying to play on the queen side. But when you have seen my game against Krum Georgiev, what do you think? What is the best way to proceed on the queen side? How we should develop our pawn play on the queen side? We have this typical pawn formation. For example, prepare a3 and b4, or just try to do something else. Since black has already committed to a6, we have an additional possibility. This is to play a4, a5 with the idea to fix the pawns of our opponent, and then bishop d2, knight a4, and b. If we proceed in this way, black will have problems to keep the c5 square under control. But as I mentioned, in closed positions, before executing our ideas, we should try to prevent any possible counterplay. And let's try to imagine what black wants to do in this position. Do you have any ideas of black's possible counterplay?
Knight e7 and g6.
Yeah, knight e7, g6. Or just try to exchange some pieces, bishop e7 and knight h4. Maybe then rook f8 and f5.
Yes.
Okay.
Just to exchange some minor pieces. And actually, Kasparov decided to prevent this idea by playing g3, bishop e7, and now h4. So by putting his kingside pawns in this way, he practically kills two pieces, the knight and the bishop. But black went for knight f6. Now, once again, we should try to consider black's possible ideas. He will try to benefit from the weakened white squares. For example, queen d7, queen h3, followed by knight g4, and maybe rook f8 and f5. Okay, this is more of a wishful thinking, but if we don't pay attention to our opponent's resources, it can happen. Another idea after queen d7 could be, so it's important to always be aware of the possible ideas. And therefore, Kasparov started with knight h2. So he wants to just to bring the queen to f3, and in this way he manages to take control of the important white squares on the queen side, practically killing black's counterplay. Now queen d7, preparing b5, but white is just in time to follow with a4, stopping b5 and actually contributing to his own plan, which is based on a5, as we know. a5, knight a4, bishop d2, b4, the white's classical idea in such pawn structures. Queen h3, queen f3. Now, black has seen that it's impossible to do something constructive, and he just went back. Queen d7, a5. Now, when all the possible ideas from of our opponent are limited, we can proceed with our idea. In closed positions, our plan is mostly based on pawn breaks. We should try to break, to make a pawn break, and in this way try to open files for our major pieces. So here we are playing for the move b4, but we try to execute it in the best possible circumstances. Knight f8, bishop d2, rook c8. But by indirectly attacking the c4 pawn, he's trying to slow down our break b4. So white should try to protect the c4 pawn and only then play for b4. And how to protect the c4 pawn? Here we can use the knight, which is currently not doing much. So Kasparov played knight f1 with the idea of knight e3. Of course, black cannot afford himself to allow knight e3. Therefore, he proceeded with knight g4, knight a4, bishop d8, and here after rook c1, the c4 pawn is being protected, and we are ready to proceed with b4. Rook b8, b4, c takes b4, bishop b4. We have seen in what a systematic way the world champion Kasparov managed to carry out his idea. Now, our strategy should be based on another pawn break. When the pawn structure changes, we should figure out a new constructive plan. In this position, the most constructive pawn break is the break c4, c5. And we should be should be prepared to open the C file. And here there is something very instructive, I think. After H5, Kasparov played quite an astonishing move, knight B6. So logically speaking, when having a space advantage, it's not so advisable to exchange minor pieces. That's what we have said in the beginning of the lecture. But after analyzing the position, I have seen that this move actually makes a lot of sense, because sooner or later, white will open the C file by means of C5. And since there will be a pawn on B6, white will be trying to penetrate via the C7 square. Because, okay, after taking control of an open file, we look for ways to penetrate via this open file. And that's why actually Kasparov went for knight B6, so queen E7, here queen A3, practically forcing rook D8. Black concedes the C file, and now after F3, he went for C5, the desirable break. D takes C5, bishop takes C5, queen F6. Note that bishop E7 is currently impossible due to queen B6. Therefore, king G2 is a good prophylactic move. Rook E8, and now bishop E3. Black has no counterplay whatsoever. And on the queen side, really winning. The queen side battle is almost over. Knight D7, rook B1, queen E7. After exchanging the queens, Kasparov penetrated via the C file, and Black's position is completely hopeless. Actually, we can say that Black is already losing on the spot. D6 is coming as the next move. So I believe this was also an instructive example featuring the play in closed positions, and how important the prophylactic thinking is in such positions. Kasparov demonstrated this prophylactic thinking in a brilliant way, I think. So if
interesting, so it proves that Kasparov also was master in these kind of position, not only tactical.
Yeah. Actually, when you're a world champion, you should know to play every kind of position, right?
Yeah.
I actually, Grigor, can you go back when he played this Queen H3 thing?
Queen A3.
He played Queen H3 a long time ago. I mean, this is completely lost. But when he allowed A5, as
yeah. Here.
Yes.
Maybe you mean to play A5, huh?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, under the circle, it's ugly, but what's the alternative? Play A5.
Yes. Actually, you're completely right. I also think that it can be possible. A5 in this position. White must have the advantage, of course, but what should be the plan? Maybe just to install a knight here. Maybe once again to put the queen on F3. And I was thinking about this maneuver, rook A3, rook B3, just to be able to create some threats on the B file when possible.
Yes, of course, white is much better, but still the other thing was so horrible.
Of course. Yeah. Maybe here he can try something like this, rook F8, and then.
But what about H5 then?
Here H5, yeah.
Yes, but
maybe this is not so.
Well.
F5, the knight can go here. G5 square is available.
Yeah, or you can go knight E8 and knight C7 if you want to.
Yeah. Also, maybe another idea is since this move weakens the queen side, I can already think about exchanging the queens, queen f3, queen f5, and then this idea becomes even more dangerous because there is no queen to protect the weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yes. Or the immediate rook a3.
Yes. Many ideas are possible, but maybe this was the lesser review. Huh?
Yes.
Because allowing a5 is very, very dangerous from a positional point of view. Black is structurally lost. Yes. Now I wanted to show another example.
Okay.
Which was you have the same kind of center, but you see that this time the position arises from closed Rui Lopez. So Black also made some progress on the queen side, and we cannot play on the queen side. Actually, in this game, I wanted to clearly illustrate another benefit of having more space. This benefit was illustrated in my game against Georgiev, but in this here, you will see it in a more clear way. The possibility to easily transfer pieces from one wing to another, the better communication lines we're enjoying in such positions. So what do you think with White is playing Nepomniachtchi, the Russian Grandmaster, and with Black is playing the Chinese Super Grandmaster Xianzhi Bu? So what do you think White should play? Maybe there is not an obvious best move in this position, but what played Nepomniachtchi is very interesting. Maybe we can think together.
The idea is to play f4?
Yeah,
of course.
The only constructive idea should be f4. Huh? We always try to break in such positions.
Yeah.
But how to prepare it? So knight h2, f4 is a typical idea of preparing it. And when I saw this position for the first time, okay, I was considering knight h2, rook f1, and then f4. But
rook f1?
Yeah, rook f1 is also possible. White's idea was really astonishing. He played rook a2.
Mm-hmm.
Which just demonstrates the ability to easily transfer pieces from one wing to another. The idea is to play bishop b1, rook f1, knight h2, f4, and then this rook will come directly to f2.
Amazing. Yeah.
Rook a2 was a very, very nice idea, and actually this shows why in some cases when Black's pawn is on b5 and our pawn is on a2, we can play a4, b4, a5, not just to gain some space on the queen side, but also to free the a2 square for the rook, which was a very original idea in such positions. So he played rook a2, bishop g7, and now bishop b1. Very, very, very interesting idea. Here, yeah, the idea is knight h2, rook f1, and f4. And I have done many analyses in this position. It seems that it's not so easy for Black to prepare for this idea. He played knight e7, which is not logical, I think, because it's clear that sooner or later White will play f4, and Black should try to take the e5 square under control. Therefore, the move queen e7, preparing knight d7 seems more logical, but even in this way, it's not so clear. Knight h2, knight, rook f1. For example, if Black waits passively, let's say with a move like queen f8, then f4, e takes f4, bishop takes f4, knight e5, rook f2, and after king h1, knight g4. It turns out that black cannot hold the e5 square. So most probably we will exchange one pair of knights and the dark square bishops. Therefore, this king will become very, very weak in the long term. So,
and I would say black's big. I mean, both the bishop on b7 and the knight on c8 is horrible. They are horrible.
yes,
They don't do anything.
yeah, of course. Yeah, if the knight was on d7, maybe it would be playable, but once again, black would be worse in this position because the e5 square is important and as white's space advantage in the position. But here it's just horrible. So I also analyzed this move: h5, f4. He takes f4, bishop takes f4, bishop d4, king h1. But actually, black's side is weakened, and white's attack is developing in a quite a natural way. For example, this is an illustrative line: bishop e5, queen c1. I want knight f3 just to start fighting for the e5 square. Take on f4, queen takes f4, knight e5. Then the rook comes to f2. Now knight f3, I would go to g5. And here, what is instructive is that if we manage to somehow exchange the e5 knight, black's only active piece, black's position would immediately collapse. In order to exchange the knight, we should employ the maneuver knight e2, knight c1, knight d3. And then black's position collapses. In closed positions, you can plan long-term ideas, long maneuvers, because you have plenty of time. Here, schematic thinking is very important. Let's take a look at the game, which was also very interesting. Knight e7, knight h2, and here he went for g5, just weakening the white squares, but desperately trying to stop f4. Now knight h5. Yeah, white starts playing for the white squares. Bishop c8. Take, queen h5, king g7, knight g4, rook h8. And actually, black was aiming for this position. And here, what do you think? Can white proceed with gradually improving his positions, or already some dynamic moves are necessary?
I was thinking about rook e3 because I want to check if it's possible to take on f6 and take on g5.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, it's possible. Also, we should take into consideration some possible ideas. And it's already possible to see how black can improve his position. For example, knight g6, bishop e7, maybe knight f4 at some point. Black already has some play, and that's why the moment for concrete actions is now. And here,
it looks like f4.
Yeah, he went for f4. He felt that here dynamic actions are required. And after g takes f4, he went for g3.
Mm-hmm.
The king side. Mm-hmm. Then rook g2 is coming. For example, knight g6, g takes f4. And here it turns out that there is no defense. For example, if he takes, then knight f6, king f6, we should bring this passive bishop into play. E5, d takes e5, rook g2. actually, white's attack is tremendous. Now the idea is bishop g6 as well as rook g6, queen g6, then queen e5. He play rook e8, but then bishop f4 is coming. Knight f4 is impossible. This is a mate.
Yeah.
He takes f4. Yeah, this is another mate. So, black's position is collapsing. After e5, another winning line would be knight takes e5, queen h4, king g7. The rook is coming to g2, queen f6. White's attack is actually developing in a very natural way. So in this position, defense against the mate. The game went queen e7, take, f takes e5, d takes e5, rook g2. The other rook came to f1, and now white won in a very convincing way by employing the following scheme: bishop e3, rook f2, rook f6. He took the queen, and then all these pawns start falling. So the position is completely winning for white. In a few moves, black resigned. But when analyzing this game, I was really amazed by the concept behind this rook a2, which is a quite typical move for such positions, and illustrates very well the better communication lines in positions with a space advantage. So now, if you don't have questions to discuss about this game, I want to illustrate the power of schematic thinking in closed positions by analyzing some interesting endgames. You will see how long-term plans we can make in such positions. Yeah, so maybe I shall proceed.
Yeah, sure. Very nice examples, Grigor.
Thank you.
Very interesting. I think also it's interesting. Maybe you can talk a little bit about those examples you have shown now. It might be clear to everybody that the bishops are extremely bad compared to the knights for the losing side, for the bad side. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So now I want to share some amazing endgames in which we will see the schematic thinking. For example, let's start with this one. This position arises in the game Chanda Sandipan against a player with a rating 2300. So white is better, but do you think that there is a winning plan in this position? This is quite an amazing endgame.
I know the example, but I'm curious if Ferdinand and Pia find it.
Yeah.
You giving up hope on all others?
I think the Black Knight is very bad. It seems it cannot move.
Yeah.
So why can't we just go with our king around to an attack C, or let's say B6?
Yeah, okay, but my king will be on C7.
Yeah.
And then I will just play with the knight. Knight f8, knight h7. Here it's impossible to calculate long variations. You should just win by using schemes. Quite an amazing example, yeah. And from a practical point of view, it's very difficult to play with black. Actually, this position is not lost for black. This is a draw, but white can create tremendous practical problems in this position.
Mm.
So generally speaking, in closed end games, we win by sacrificing pieces in order to create best pawns, or by invading the camp of our opponent. Sometimes we are using both strategies. We can sacrifice a piece in order to invade. So one idea is bring the bishop to A8, for example. Then the king can go to B8. 7. So it's possible to sacrifice the bishop, and then the king will go in this way. Yeah. The king can go to A7, the bishop on A8, and then it's possible to sacrifice the bishop. But let's see if this strategy works actually. So bishop A6 was played in the game. King D7. By the way, there was some instability in my connection. Can you hear my voice well?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we can hear you, but your
okay.
picture is a little bit freezing a little bit, but it should be okay, I think.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But it's important that you can hear me, right?
Yeah, we hear you very well.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So bishop B7, king C7, bishop A8. So the first plan of the first part of our plan is accomplished. So the king is coming to the queen side now. Knight H7, okay. And here black went for G. Let's first see the game. This move is losing. But actually, this is a typical psychological mistake. We can easily judge black for playing such a bad move, but maybe he has seen white's idea. He has seen that white will come with the king to A7, then sacrifice the bishop, and then the king will go in this direction. And if he believes that white can win the game in this way, he is going for some desperate measures, because you never know if the passive defense would hold. And when defending, this is maybe the major problem, because you don't know if the passive defense would hold, and if you don't know if the active play would lose immediately. There is no rule which will help you to make the decisions. A lot of analysis and practice are required. Yeah, he played G5, F takes G5, Knight takes G5, but now we can use another scheme to win. So now we should just bring the bishop to D3 and prepare H7. So first of all, the king will go to A6, then bishop B7, then king A7, bishop A6, bishop D3, H7, and white is winning. Sorry, yeah. King B4, knight H7, king A5, knight G5, king A6. Very, very easy. He played F5. What else? If he doesn't play F5, we already know the idea. It's very easy win. So F5, E takes F6, E5, D4. Here, many ideas are possible. Even king A7, D3, bishop A6, D2, bishop E2. This is a completely winning position. But Chanda Sandipan calculated until the end. So take E6, D3, E7, knight F6, H7, D2, queen, queen, queen C8, and you see that the D4, D1 queen is will be lost, because after king D5, then queen D8, and okay, we will take the queen. But let's return to the most important position of the game, because here G5 is a clear mistake. black should defend passively. If I would play black, I'm not sure that I would have chosen the passive defense, because when I see white's long-term plan, it's very easy to get convinced that this position is lost. The draw becomes obvious when you go further, but it's easy to be discovered only in analysis. So king b4, knight h7, king a5, knight f8, king a6, knight h7, king a7, knight f8. Of course, we have time, therefore we will sacrifice the bishop when the knight is on f8 and not on h7. So take, and now king b8. And here black should play concretely. And now while analyzing this position, I have found the following amazing sequence: g5. This is the only way to make a draw. F takes g5, knight g5, king d8, f6. Once again, the only move. Now e5, d takes e5, d4, king e7, d3, f7, knight h7. Yeah, the line goes in this way. Now we have a queen endgame, but black manages to improve his position in a forced way. So now king d5, king f5, just to protect the e5 pawn, and now this position is already a draw. Okay, it's not so easy to foresee this draw when you are here and you are not sure that something will be found. Maybe only it's possible to find the right way by relying on intuition, or by seeing that actually this g5 move is losing quickly, and just go for the long sequence and hope that something will be possible.
What
but
about
a very
f6?
difficult position from a practical point of view.
What about f6? Would the same idea apply then?
In this position, you mean?
Yeah.
f6. Maybe once again this move, and then I go with the bishop to d3.
And now you go back again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it will be the same procedure.
Yes. So now I will put the bishop on d3, and I'm winning. So the king goes to a6, then bishop b7, king a7, bishop a6, bishop d3.
Yeah.
Difficult position from a practical point of view. And actually, in closed-end games, of course, you're mainly using schematic thinking. You can make some long-term plans. You can plan different sacrifices, but sometimes there is another psychological difficulty. When you go for the sacrifice, then the game starts being very concrete, and sometimes it's not easy to have the right psychological mindset when playing the positions. For example, you're used to play a slow game with a lot of long-term plans, maneuvers, so on and so forth. At some point, you execute the sacrifice, and then you're winning, but you should play in a very concrete way. Statistically, very often in such cases, mistakes happen. And now I want to show a stunning example from this perspective. Yeah, this is a game between two strong Spanish grandmaster players, I think. Yeah, with White is playing grandmaster with a rating about 2500, Pascal Antonio. Yeah, so now it's white to move. What do you think white long-term plan should be? What is the scheme in this position? We can discuss a bit if you have some interesting ideas.
Bishop d2, then g5, takes, and then king g4 at some point.
King f6, but there will be king f6 for black.
So it won't work. Oh yeah.
Yeah, in general, yeah, if we exchange many pawns, and also black gets rid of his knight, then the draw would be obvious. Yeah.
So we're thinking about attacking d6.
Yeah, but how?
So there will be the maneuver with the black bishop to go to b8.
Mm-hmm.
And the king come over, maybe possible to exchange the white bishop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you exchange the white square bishops via a4 square.
Yeah.
And then you cannot go to c6 because I will play king d7.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, not so easy, but yeah, we should make some sacrifice.
Could you, after go with the king to closer to the queen side?
Yeah, to a2, for example.
And then when black plays king d7, play bishop a4 check.
No, I will play only knight f8, knight h7.
Well, anyway, take your king to e3 then, and
then play bishop a4.
Yeah, play bishop e4, and then.
Okay, when I play bishop a4, I exchange the bishops and put the king on d7.
Yeah. So we need to have
then what you do?
Can you exchange the light square bishop and then play my idea, because the king is in Suk1?
You want to play g5 again?
Yeah, but first exchange the light square bishops.
Yeah, but even if you play bishop d2 and then g5, let's imagine that the king is on the king side, then I will take h takes g5, h takes g5, and we'll take with the knight.
And then you take with the bishop, take with pawn, and king g4, king defense, and then king h5, and the king is in.
No, maybe I can play.
Let me something.
For example, when you play king g5, then king f7. Yeah.
Then take the pawn.
Let's imagine that. Okay. For example, this was actually the game. Okay, now you go back. Here, at least it's very easy to think in such schemes. So now g5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, take. Let's first examine the simplest, the pawn endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah, you take, and now this move.
It's a draw, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a draw.
So, but here, actually, there is another idea. After exchanging the white squared bishops, we can sacrifice the bishop on c5 and then have two connected passed pawns.
Mm.
This is the right idea, and the game continues in this way: king d7, now king b5, knight f8, bishop king b6, Okay, we are not forced to immediately take the pawn on c5. Even from a practical point of view, maybe it's preferable to make some to start with some different ideas. For example, play king b7, then maybe bishop c7, pretend that we are going to sacrifice the bishop on d7, d6, and then go from c8. We are not going to do this idea. We are not even not planning it. But what is the idea? We are trying to force our opponent to think about, to lose some time, and we are going to sacrifice the bishop on c5 when he's in time trouble. So from a practical point of view, it's a good strategy. For example, I remember that when I spoke with our grandmaster Georgiev, who is from my hometown, he told me that he's always playing like this. He said, he thought, I see a given idea. And before executing this idea, if my opponent has no counterplay, I'm playing 20, 30 moves just to hide my plan and to squeeze his time. And when he's tired and when he's in time trouble, I go for the idea. And very often he cannot defend precisely. From a psychological point of view, this is an interesting approach, I think. Yeah.
Very good.
Jag inte. Misstrust. Alltså.
So bishop c3, knight f6, king b7, knight h7, bishop e1, bishop f2. At the end, white is going. White has settled himself for the sacrifice. But of course, it's good to sacrifice when the knight is on h7, when the knight is far away from the center. Therefore, we start with this move, bishop e3. Knight h5, bishop c5, d takes c5, king c5. And now the game is becoming very concrete. And here, in such positions, when the game is getting concrete, mistakes start happening because and up to this point, white was mainly thinking in schemes. Which maneuver to make, which piece to exchange, what is the scheme which allows me to improve my position. But now, when the entire plan is realized, we should start thinking in concrete variations. And it's not so easy to transmit from static thinking into dynamic thinking. King b6, king c8, king c6. So and now white is playing well. c5, king d8. And here, if I say that only one move is winning the game, and this move is king b5, maybe you will not believe me. Because actually it's very natural to go for something like king d6 or d6, then king d5, c6.
Hey. Papa.
So, but for example, king d6, which is natural, runs into knight b8, c6, knight a6. Then it turns out that that white cannot win this position. I analyzed the following variation: king e6, knight c5, king f7, take on e4, king g7, king c7. Now g5, take, f6, knight d6, f7. So this is a draw.
Yeah.
So king d6 is not winning the game because of this maneuver, knight b8, and after c6, knight a6. If you play d6, once again, knight b8. Now king d5 is bad because of king d7 and knight c6. Black is already, I don't know if he's winning, but yeah, maybe not winning. on the pawns. But no problems for black. King b7, knight d7, and now it turns out that there is no way to improve the position. c6, knight c5, and if king b8, then knight a6. This is a draw. So d6 does not work. In the game, he played h5. Okay, let me show the only winning variation: knight king b5. But this is just to prevent some such ideas. Knight b8, knight a6. And now, if he goes for knight b8, then I go for c6. And if he goes for king c7, h5, this is a Zugzwang. Yeah, if the king goes back, then d6. If the king goes to d6, then king b6. Also, it's not possible to escape the Zugzwang by playing h5 because of taking, and now h6. Once again, Zugzwang. But when up to this point, you are used to think by using statical means. It's very easy to miss the move king b5, which is a concrete solution. For example, if I'm playing with white, especially with little time on the clock, I'm not sure that I will find king b5. Most probably not. Yeah, I can even miss something which is a way simpler than king b5. So it's not easy to blame white for missing this move. And you will see that mistakes continue in this game. He played h5. Now king c8, king d6. Yeah, now if he goes king d8, this is already a draw. Then knight b8 is coming. But he played knight b8, terrible mistake. c6, yeah. King d8, and here I don't know why he didn't play c7. Yeah, astonishing. He played this move, knight a6, king f7, and now if black plays knight c5, this is a draw. But he had in mind another idea, knight b4. Maybe here they are in time trouble. King g7. This was black's idea. But after g5, white is winning. Finally, white won the game after many mistakes in the final phase. But actually, statistically speaking, such mistakes arise very often because the position is getting dynamic at once, and it's not so easy for a human to start thinking in a different way when playing a practical game. So from a psychological point of view, even though these mistakes are serious, they're quite understandable. So if you don't want to discuss something related to this game, I probably shall illustrate another example.
Yeah, let's go on.
Okay. Just let me see. Yeah, one end game that I like a lot, which is based on schematic thinking. And probably this will be our last example for today, but very interesting endgame. Maybe some of you know this position, which arose in the game Vladimir Kramnik, Ilescas Cordova. Yeah, so white has space advantage, a bishop pair, and here it's let's think of a long-term plan. Generally speaking, black has no counterplay, and he should passively wait for white's ideas. The b6 pawn is already a weakness, but it's not possible to win only by using this weakness. So in the long term, white will be trying to create another weakness on the king side. Maybe first idea would be to bring the knight to a4, just attacking the weakness on b6 and making the d7 knight passive. But then it's important to create another weakness on the king side. So it's important second front. And when we have a bishop pair, it's a recommendable strategy to gain space on the entire board, because if we have far advanced pawns, there are many possible pawn contacts which can eventually make our bishops very active. Therefore, a possible strategy would be to bring the knight to a4, and after that start winning space on the king side, f4, g4, g5. Maybe it's even possible to play h4, h5, h6 to fix the h7 pawn and just to use the h7 pawn as a second weakness. But of course, many structural transformations are possible, and therefore white will be changing his plans during the game. So knight d2, knight d8, knight b1, bishop b7, f4 was played by Kramnik, and here Ilescas went for f6, which is a bit dubious, I think, because this move gives white the possibility to contact the f6 pawn in some cases by means of g4, h4, g5, and by playing g5, white will be able to create weaknesses on the king side. But had I been with black, probably I would have chosen king f8 as a more reliable move. So he played f6, knight c3, king f7, knight a4, king e7, and now Kramnik is using another disadvantage of the move f6. He's just transforming the pawn structure. Yes, all the possible structural transformations in closed positions should be considered in a very serious way. And here Kramnik went for d4. Actually, it's already not easy for black to defend in this position, because this pawn on b6 is in danger. What is white's idea? He wants to play d5 just to provoke an exchange, and then bishop h3 is possible, attacking the defender of the b6 pawn. So black's position is already very difficult. C takes d4 is not possible because of bishop d4, and the b6 pawn, the b6 pawn will be lost. So he went for king d8, then d5, and now it's not so easy to defend. For example, black's natural desire is to close the position in order to restrict the bishops by playing e5, but we have bishop h3, and white is winning on the spot. Bishop d7 is coming. After that, knight takes b6. White is winning. So here, e takes d5, e takes d5. Bishop h3 is coming in this position. So maybe the only possible way to defend the b6 pawn is the ugly looking knight c7, and after bishop h3, knight a8. Yeah, so this is the way to defend the b6 pawn. And now what is a black strategy? Sit and pray that white doesn't have enough resources to improve the position.
Yeah.
So here, what will be the scheme? How to proceed? Of course, our long-term constructive plan should be based on contacting the f6 pawn. So we can use this pawn as a hook. So bishop e6. Yeah, in general, before contacting a pawn, it's good to fix it. Therefore, after knight f8, Kramnik went for f5. Then it's possible to prepare g4, g5, which is the main strategy. So he went for bishop c8, king f2, bishop d7, g4. Now g5 is coming. Therefore, black should recon with this idea. And here we have another structural transformations. Since g5 is coming, black played king e7, g5, take, and bishop e8. Now we have a new pawn structure, and therefore we need another scheme. In closed positions, whenever the pawn structure changes, we make a new scheme for our pieces. So first of all, we try to find our ideas, and then we try to consider the plan of our opponent. After seeing the ideas of our opponent, we first neutralize his ideas and then proceed with our plan. So quite naturally, I want to, for example, to have a king on f4 and knight on e3 just to prepare knight f5. The bishop can be even on h6. Yeah, but what black wants to do in this position, he wants to play the bishop g6 and then bishop d3 or bishop c2 just to spoil the coordination in my camp. Therefore, first stage of Kramnik's plan would be to bring the king to 3 just to prevent any ideas c3. He can bring the bishop to h6, and then the knight will go to e3 via b2, d1, e3 routes. After bringing the knight to e3, then the king can go to f4 since the c4 pawn is protected. And when the king is on f4, then I can go for knight f5. So we start king e3, bishop g6, king d2, bishop e4, bishop c1. You see, Kramnik doesn't provide any counterplay for his opponents. Bishop f1, bishop h6, bishop g2. Now he played bishop f4. Actually, this is not an obvious move, but since he has a lot of time to go around, he can wait and be patient. Don't hurry is an important principle when playing such positions. Bishop f1, knight b2, then knight d1, knight e3 is coming. Knight c7, knight d1, bishop g2. We should always attention to what our opponent wants. So now bishop d5 is his concrete idea. So knight e3, bishop e4, bishop h6. As I have already pointed out, now our strategy is to transfer the king to f4. King d2, king e2, king f2, king g3, king f4, and then knight f5. This is the strategy. Knight e8, king d2. Now knight c7. In this position, I have also considered this move, f5, with the idea of knight f6, just trying to be more active, but it doesn't work tactically. For example, bishop g5, knight f6, and actually, after this move, knight f1, he's losing a piece. Knight g3, knight h5 is coming. And there is no escape from this pin. So if this knight g3, bishop g4, h3, white is winning. So knight c7, king e2, knight e8, king f2, knight c7, king g3. bishop d3, king g4, knight e8, king f4, bishop b1. Now, at the end of the day, we finally managed to carry out this idea, knight f5. And here, black cannot afford himself to take the knight because the endgame is hopeless. So there is a very easy zugzwang in this position. After knight c7, then just bishop g7, bishop h8, and this is a zugzwang. Wherever the knight goes, the f6 pawn will be lost. So after king d8, he played bishop f8, bishop d3. The only counterplay is based on our pawns, on white squares. And here, for example, yeah, taking on d6 does not work. This is already a draw. So bishop e7, king c7, knight e3. Now, since black still manages to hold this position, white should create another scheme. The plan is Kramnik managed to find the following idea: bringing the king to h6, then gaining space on the king side by playing h4, h5, and at some point sacrifice the bishop in order to penetrate in black's camp. As we have seen, very often the winning strategies in closed endgames are based on sacrifice and invasion. So king g4, knight c7, king h5, knight g7, king h6. The first stage of our plan is completed. And now it's important to gain some space. Here, actually, before sacrificing, we can further improve the position by activating the knight. The knight can go to f4. This move should never be considered because of king h7, and then this pawn is becoming decisive. So king c8, knight f4, bishop c2, and now Kramnik decided to sacrifice. He cannot further improve his position. Therefore, the moment to make a sacrifice is now. So bishop f6, knight f6, king g7. Actually, surprising enough, black still can hold this position, but it's not easy at all. And now the game becomes very dynamic, and therefore the probability of making a mistake is very high. Knight e8, king f7, and here Ilescas keeps applying the perfect defense, knight c7. For example, king d8. Just a second. There was some problem arise with chess base. I will fix it immediately. Yeah, king d8, e7. This is actually losing. King d7, knight e6, bishop d1, knight f8, and now h6. If he plays bishop h5, then king g8, knight f6, king g7, white is winning. The h7 pawn will be lost, and then white is winning. So he played knight c7, e7, h6. Just a second only. I want to... Yeah. It will be better now. Okay. So now h6, knight e6. Yeah, you see that it seems that white is winning, but still there is a defense. Bishop d1. If you take the knight, then he will play bishop takes h5 and then king c7. So king g6 should be played, but now knight e8. Knight f8, bishop e2, he takes this pawn, bishop c4, king g6. Now he has another passer, and here it's black can save the game, but it's very difficult to find the right sequence. I imagine that in this position, Ilescas was in a time trouble, and it was not easy to find. So the only saving chance was this. And after king f7, he should see c4, take, c3, king f7, bishop b5, h6, c2, h7, queen, queen, queen f4, queen f6, bishop e8, and this is a draw. It's for bishop d5, h6, c4, h7, bishop e4, king f7. He took bishop g8, yeah, just to prevent king f7, but now knight d7, c3, and he resigned without waiting for the obvious king f8. So you see that until one moment we're thinking in schemes and we are making long-term plans, but when the sacrifice is being executed, the game is becoming very, very concrete, and then the probability of making mistakes is very high. But it's amazing that until the end of the game, Kramnik played very precisely, and it was only his opponent eventually went wrong. Of course, it was very easy to go wrong because the psychological pressure is very high. He was defending for a long time, and at one point we are just getting tired. So I hope that in some way I also managed to illustrate the psychological aspects of the fight in closed positions, besides providing some generally useful knowledge. Yeah, these were my most interesting examples. Of course, I have even more to share. In modern chess, we have made a separate workshop which was dedicated on closed positions. You can even find the workshop on the website. This is quite a wide topic, but in this lecture, I just wanted to illustrate some very important aspects which I consider to be interesting. So if you want to discuss something or to ask some questions, it will be a pleasure for me.
Thank you, Grigor. It's fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
Everybody.
Thank you very much.
Agree.
Great work.
So, anyone who has some questions for Grigor should use this opportunity, I think. What do you think, Pia? Was it good examples for you too?
Yes, no, very much. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. Yes.
Nice. So,
so I hope that the examples were interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Do you play the closed position as black also, or do you prefer to play them as white with the space advantage?
I definitely prefer to play with white and have space advantage. Therefore, I mainly prefer closed openings like Reti. I play d4 as well, c4. But of course, from time to time, I play closed positions as black mainly when playing Queen's Indian defense, Nimzo Indian defense. So yeah, in general, I like positions in which static elements are important.
So if we should sum up a little bit about closed positions, the two main aspects.
Can I have one question?
Yes, of course.
Could you explain the relationship between concrete and dynamic? Because you used the the word dynamic in a way that I didn't quite understand.
The opposite of dynamic is static. Yeah, concrete and dynamic go in one way. So it's maybe better to explain the difference between dynamic and static approach. So dynamic factors are not stable in time. They can change. For example, when you have more active pieces, this is a dynamic advantage. We have when you have a better development, this is a dynamic advantage. But when you have an advantage which is stable in the time, for example, better pawn structure, more space, these are static factors. And yeah, as I pointed out on many occasions, I just prefer to have static advantages mostly. Of course, there are many exceptions since chess is not a simple game.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the two main aspects would be in close position, you're looking for space advantage and try to create possibilities for pawn breaks.
Yeah, actually, I think that in closed positions, our plan is more or less based on pawn breaks. So you should find a way to break, to make a pawn break in order to open files for your pieces. You generally make this pawn break on the side where you are better. For example, if you have a space advantage on the queen side, you should try to break on the queen side. Also, another very important element in closed positions is the prophylactic thinking. In all the games, we have seen how important is to prevent any counterplay of our opponent before proceeding with our own ideas. So I think another very important aspect is the schematic thinking, because in closed positions we are forced to think in schemes since it's not easy to calculate concrete lines. Schematic thinking becomes very crucial.
Yeah, what you say, Ferdinand? What do you think about this?
Yeah, well, it's one aspect. I have to admit, I avoid this kind of close positions myself. It's not my strength, but it's also one aspect I found out when I'm playing blitz and rapid. It's very difficult to play these close positions if you have a space disadvantage. It's very difficult to play in blitz and rapid. I think. I mean, I like the King's Indian as an idea, but it's in blitz and rapid. To me, it's very difficult to play.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, you need time to think out all these long maneuvers, and you don't have that time. It's a problem. You really need to know the opening perfectly if you want to play in blitz and rapid. So that's one aspect. All right, but yeah. Well, one thing that struck me is how could Black get into, especially your game against GrigorGrigorov? How did he get in such a bad position?
Okay, I can actually open the game.
Yeah,
Ferdinand, there was a King's Indian, of course. That's
yes, but I imagine so, but
Jag ska ha på sig lite kläder imorgon.
Lite lagom med kläder. Nu kanske jag ska ta.
Just a second. This is the game. So now the board is smaller. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, now it's okay.
Now much better now. Yeah.
Okay, now knight f3, bishop g7, g3, castle, bishop g2, d6, and he's usually playing this system with c6 and queen a5. Yeah, so e4, e5, now h3, rook e8. So he just tries not to qualify the position in the center so early, so just keeps the tension to keep this possibility. But okay, now I played rook e1. This is important before playing d5, because in many cases this bishop f1 is a nice idea to protect the c4 pawn. If he goes, for example, queen b4. Because generally speaking, when the rook is on e8, I think that playing d5 is already desirable, because for black it's not so easy to prepare f7, f5 when the rook is already on e8. And now when he played knight d7, I just went for d5. Yeah, and what is important is that after, for example, queen b4 or something like this, I have always a bishop f1. Therefore, I included the move rook e1. He went c5 and then a3, and you have the position from the game.
Yeah. But knight d7 is probably a mistake.
Maybe, yes. Maybe in this position
he probably must take on d4.
He must take. Yeah, he must take already.
And then knight d7.
He must take, and then knight d7. I think that I have prepared this position before the game, and I was sure that he will go for this idea, because maybe e takes d4 is the only way to justify the move rook e8. Yeah, and now knight d7. Yeah, according to my analysis back then, white has the upper hand, but of course the position remains very complicated. I know that's one of the lines goes in this way, for example. Yeah, so bishop e3, I think. Yeah, knight e5, bishop f1. Here there was also this idea: knight takes e6, rook e6. So now black doesn't have so many space problems, but white's bishop pair can be a long-term advantage. There is a lot of playing in this position.
And can I say something? Because I played this position several times with black.
Yes.
But there are some, maybe 20 years ago last time. So in this position, I actually played it with Karpov once in the team, Finnish team championship, 95. And it's curious, in this position, he blundered, because there is one, the last position you have, go. Bishop e6, took, and here now this is one move white has to play here. So what is the move white should play to avoid any kind of tactics?
So there was this king g2.
King g2,
yeah, you have to go king g2. But you know what Karpov played? I got this position twice, I think.
Because you have this idea, knight e4 and queen e1.
Yeah, he played a3. A3, and I took an e4, and then, he just went rook c1. So I played with the pawn up, but it was a draw anyway. But it's curious. I saw that Karpov played this position some years later. I think it was 3 years later in semi-rapid, maybe against Radjabov, I don't know. And he played a3 again. And I took an e4, and it was
he just forgot.
And it was also draw, but I was a semi-rapid. We played a slow game, yeah. So twice, and I guess this is a little bit what we have. We have this pattern. We like some patterns, and we go for them. So he made this mistake twice, actually, but I was very surprised, yeah. After, when I played with him, said that we played in the morning. We played 10 o'clock in the morning because it was the last round of the weekend, and he said it was that was the reason why he blundered. So, but king g2 is what you have to play, and it's also if you go f4 there, you can also even then go knight e4.
Yes.
So, but king e2 is the way, and it's considered, I guess, a little bit better.
Yeah, after king g2, I think that white can fight for a slight advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is absolutely. But it's curious that
This is what I have prepared for the but I was astonished that a King's Indian player like Georgiev went for knight d7 without thinking, and then d5 is just structurally very good. Actually, there is another interesting point in this position. Why it's good to play rook e1 before d5, because if I play d5 immediately, I forgot to mention this idea: c takes d5, c takes d5, b5.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the ideas of behind queen a5. Yeah, this is very interesting. But when I play bishop rook e1, knight d7, d5, then this doesn't work because of bishop f1. And if b4, then knight b5.
Mm.
And black just cannot keep the position together. Yeah, I think that even I have even played this position once with black, and I lost in a very instructive way. For example, he played d5, c takes d5, c takes d5, and I went for b5, b4, this typical idea. And my opponent was a correspondence player. He played a3 without thinking. I played quickly b4, knight a2, take, knight c3. So the idea is rook takes a3 and bishop e3, just to have some grip on the queen side. And here, I was just thinking that my opponent, being lower rated, he doesn't know very well the theory, and I quickly played queen b4, take, knight e4, but now it turns out that white is actually winning, because in this position he has knight g5, and after queen g4, then knight e6, using this opposition.
Mm. Very nice.
Yes. So maybe even here it's also interesting to play even d5 immediately, because after b5, if can play a3 and black doesn't have something concrete, maybe white should be slightly better, because we have a simple way of improving the position. For example, h3, bishop e3, maybe b4, rook c1, this knight goes to b3. This is a weakening move. Actually, this is a very rare approach for white, and not so well tested. Maybe it can be played from time to time. Yeah, interesting coin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because if you go b4, knight a2, knight takes e4,
yeah,
knight takes b4, maybe.
Yes, and then the weakness of the c6 is.
This is not so good. Probably.
Yeah, maybe not so good. So maybe black can play in some dynamic way, but during the game I was not satisfied with such a position.
No.
Even nowadays, it's not so clear for me how can black equalize in this position in a clear way. Even though it's considered to be favorable for black to play b5, but a3, black should maybe play something very concrete, and it's not so clear how to exactly to proceed.
Okay. I think we are getting close.
Yes.
Okay, so for me it was a very big pleasure to be with you and to have a chat with Wasa.
Really enjoyable evening, Grigor. And before we close, I have to apologize because I wrote Grigorov instead of Grigorov. So let's clear up that because it might be important difference, not to mix up different
Okay.
players. Yes, but thank you very much. I think
Thank you.
we all have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was pleasure.
Have a nice
with you
evening,
tonight.
everybody. See you soon.
Have a nice. See you.
Bye bye.
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 Bye. Bye.